Design of spur gear can be subdivided into three parts. In the first part, we will calculate the module. Second part focuses on the calculation of the dimensions, and the third part is the validation. Now let us discuss the design procedure in detail. Before we start to solve or before we start to design, we have to list down all the parameters or the working conditions of the gear. Among the parameters, the allowable stress for the pinion and gear is very important. Sometimes in the question they can give you the allowable stress value of the pinion and gear. Sometimes they will specify the materials. Sometimes they will not state anything regarding the material or the allowable stress. If that is the case, you have to go to the page number 234 of the data handbook, refer the table 12.7, and you have to get the allowable stress value. And also you should have the value of Z1 and Z2 before you proceed with the design procedure. So that can be obtained from the table 12.4 in the page number 230. Now let us see what all are the equations or how we can get the values of the allowable stress value from the specified tables. So if you look here, this is the table 12.7. In the table 12.7, they have given different type of materials that is commonly used for the spur gear and the corresponding allowable stress value. Even though it is stated to use in the Lewis formula, but this can also be adopted for any static stress field, and they have also specified the Brinell hardness number. So if the material is specified in the question, we have to use the table 12.7 and we have to note down the allowable stress value sigma 01 and sigma 02. 1 indicates for the pinion and 2 indicates for the gear. So sigma 1 indicates the allowable stress value for the pinion and sigma 2 indicates the allowable stress value for the gear. And if the question doesn't have the material or the allowable stress value, then we have the freedom to select the material from this. We can assume same material for the pinion and gear, or we can assume different material for the pinion and gear. That is our choice. That is the initial part. Then we have to use the table 12.4b. This table is used when the question doesn't have the number of teeth in it. Usually they will not give you Z2 and Z1. Sometimes they can give you Z1 or Z2. So if Z1 or Z2 is given, then you can use the speed ratio to calculate the value of the other one. I hope all of you know what exactly is the speed ratio or the gear ratio, which is nothing but N1 by N2 equal to D2 by D1 equal to Z2 by Z1. So using this specific gear ratio, we can find out the unknown. Suppose if Z2 and Z1 both are missing from the question, we have to use the table 12.4 column number 3 to get the minimum number of teeth. They are the minimum number of teeth. This is only for the pinion. It is not for the gear. So this is the two table that we have to refer initially to start the design. So once we have the stress value and stress of pinion and gear, the first step of the design is the identification of weaker member. So how to identify the weaker member? Because we have a pinion and we have a gear, so one among these two is weaker. So to identify that, we can follow a table like procedure. So in this, we will list down the allowable stress values of the pinion and gear. Next we have to calculate the Lewis form factor y1 and y2. So Lewis form factor is obtained in the equation 12.5c, d and e in the page number 204. Let us go and see what is given in there. This is the equation for the Lewis form factor. Y equal to 0.124 minus 0.684. That is for the 14.5 degree involute, 20 degree involute system and 20 degree step teeth. So three different equations are for three different systems. So when you substitute the value of Z1, we will get the value of Y1. When we substitute Z2, we should have the value of Y2. So these are the Lewis form factor. This can also be obtained from the table 12.5. In the table 12.5, a tabular form is given. In that you can get the value. This is the table 12.5 value of tooth form, Lewis form factor. So if you have the number of teeth Z, you are going to get the corresponding values. You can go for the direct substitution or you can use this table. Both are acceptable. So once you have these two values, you come back to the initial step. You calculate sigma 1 y1 and sigma 2 y2. Among these two values, the smaller one is considered as a weaker member. Suppose if sigma 1 y1 is lesser than sigma 2 y2, then pinion is weaker, and vice versa. So smaller value will be the weaker one, and we are going to design for the weaker member. So further, for all the steps, we are going to use the variables of the weaker member. We no need to design the stronger one, we have to design the weaker one. And here we have to add one more point, which is nothing but, see, if both gear and pinion is made of same material, then pinion is the weaker one. How? If both the material, if both gear and pinion are made of same material, then the pinion is going to be the weaker. How? Because for the same material means sigma 1 and sigma 2 will be same. So the only deciding parameter is y1 and y2. Among y1 and y2, y1 is going to be smaller, because if you refer the equation, you can easily understand, because if z1 is smaller, this ratio is going to be large and the difference is going to be small. Obviously y1 is going to be smaller compared to y2. So for the same material assumption, definitely the pinion is going to be a weaker member. Now in the step number 2, we have to calculate the tangential tooth load Ft. The equation for tangential tooth load is 1000 PCS divided by V, equation 12.7a. So P is the power in kilowatt, obviously that is understood. Now comes CS. CS is a service factor from the table 12.8. Now let us go and see what is the service factor given in the table 12.8. This is the equation for Ft for the first per gear. This is the equation for Ft 12.7a. So CT can be obtained from the CS can be obtained from the table 12.8. Table 12.8 consists of different operating conditions. From that you can select one. Table 12.8 to use in the equation 12.7. You can have different load conditions, you can have different operating conditions. So based upon this, you can assume the value for CS and you can substitute it back over there to get the value of Ft. Now comes the important part, how can we substitute the value of V? Because if you don't have the value of D, you cannot have a value for V. But the D can be substituted as M into Z, because module is nothing but D by Z. So D is going to be MZ. So if diameter is unknown, then we have to substitute the velocity in terms of module. So you have the value of Z, you have the value of N. Then if the weaker member is pinion, it has to be pi M Z1 N1 by 1000. If gear is weaker, pi Z2 N2 by 1000. So what we are going to get is Ft in terms of M. So M will come in the denominator, some value divided by M. That is how you are going to get the value of Ft if diameter is not given. So you have to get the value of Ft in terms of M. That is a type 1 question. Now in the step number 3, we are supposed to find the same tangential load using the Lewis equation. So the Lewis equation is given in the equation 12.5a, page number 204, pi sigma by MCV. Ft we have already calculated in terms of M, that we have to substitute it over here. Sigma is the allowable stress for the weaker member, that has to be noted. Now comes Y. Y is the Lewis form factor for the weaker member. Now the face width. Face width is usually taken as 10m. That can be obtained from the equation 12.5f. Now let us go to the data handbook and see what all are the specific set of equations given there. See, this is the Lewis equation 12.5a, pi sigma d cv by m. So to get the value of b, it is given over here, face width 9.5m lesser than or equal to b less than or equal to 12.5m. So for an easier substitution and calculation, I have assumed it as 10m. Usually for the helical gear, bevel gear and worm gear, we are selecting the value of b as 10m nm. So b is substituted in terms of m. So you have a m in the denominator on the left hand side. If you cross multiply this, 1m from the left hand side will come to the right hand side, and you have a 10m here for the b, so it will become m square, and finally another m is here, so altogether we are going to get m cube. So what we have to do is, after this step, we have to obtain an equation m cube cv. M cube cv should be greater than or equal to the left hand side, something like that we have to obtain. So m cube cv equal to something, that is the final thing we have to obtain from the Lewis equation. This m cube cv, that form can be obtained only when the diameters are unknown. Suppose if you have the diameters, definitely you will get a cubic equation, not in the form of m cube cv. So that we can distinguish between these two, the questions which the diameters are known and the questions with the diameters known, that can be solved, and while solving you will understand it clearly. So when you have an equation m cube cv greater than or equal to some particular value, you have to solve it by using the trial and error method. How to use the trial and error method? It's very simple. Initially we will assume the value for module m. Suppose let it be 2. Then 2 cube is going to be 8. Now if you have the module, you can find the value of velocity, because m was unknown here. So if you have the module, you can find the velocity. Using the velocity, you can find the value of cv. It is given over here. The cv is listed here. cv, this one, velocity factor 12.6a, 12.6b, etc. So if you, based upon the range of velocity, you have to get the cv value from here, and you have to calculate m cube cv. So once again I will repeat, if you want to solve m cube cv, you assume m. Using the value of m, you can find out the velocity. Using the velocity, you can select the equation for the velocity factor cv. Using cv, calculate m cube cv and check whether it has gone beyond the required value. If it has gone beyond the required value, then the module that we have assumed is correct. If it is not, we have to increase the module. If 2 is not satisfying, we have to go for 3. That is how we have to solve the problem. So this is the method of trial and error method. And once we have the value of module, we have to go to the table 12.2, the page number 229. The page number 229, and we have to standardize it. This is the recommended series of module in the page number 229, where you have the table 12.2 recommended series of the module. So the column, odd columns give you, this first column give you the preferred value, so you can go for the preferred value, and we can select. We will go for the higher. If it is not listed here, we have to go for the higher module, not the lower one. That is how we have to complete the step number 3. And step number 4 deals with the calculation of dimensions. To calculate the dimensions, before you go for the calculation of dimension, you have to calculate ft, because in the step number 2 ft was in terms of module. So ft has to be calculated by back substituting the value of m. If you have the value of m, you can easily find out the value of b, and after and also you calculate the value of velocity, which is not listed here. Then you use the table 12.3 in the page number 229. The page number 229, we have a table 12.3. Here you can have all the parameters, addendum, dedendum, physical parameters tooth thickness, space, clearance, all these things are listed based on the module. The last column you can see. Usually these values are given as a proportion to pitch, circular pitch or diameter pitch or module. Right now we have the module. So once we have the module, we can calculate all these values. So it's a very simple step. The step number 4, we can calculate the physical dimensions of the gear using the module. So that step is very simple. So after that calculation, we have to go for the step number 5. So up to step number 3, we have calculated the module. In the second part, we have calculated the physical dimensions, and now we are moving into the third part where we have to validate the design. To validate, we have to calculate the dynamic load FD. The equation is given in the 12.12, page number 207. So FD we have already calculated K3. The value of K3 is 20.61. Velocity we have already calculated in the previous step. So that is also known. B we know, and the only unknown value is C. These two C are same. There is no difference, even though the font is different. These are one of the same. C is nothing but the dynamic factor depending upon the error. In the introduction class, I have told you there are various causes for the error, irregularities. So this is C is a factor depending upon the irregularity, error, that can be obtained by referring to the figure 12.4, 12.5, the page number 209, and table 12.12. Let us go and see what is given over here. See, this is the figure 12.5 where the x-axis give you the pitch line velocity. So based upon the pitch line, suppose if you have the pitch line velocity as 10, from here you extend vertically to this curve and you take to the left hand side or the y-axis, the error is going to be 0.04. Like that, you have to calculate the error. You can use the figure 12.5 or 12.4. So once you have the value of error, you have to move to the table 12.7. So you have to move to the table 12.7. So 12.12. This is the table. Value of the dynamic factor C. See here they have given 3 sets. The initial 3 row deals with the 14.5 degree involute. The next 3 deals with the 20 degree involute, and the final 3 indicates the stub value. And the combination is given as cast iron, steel, and steel. This is the combination they have given. Suppose if you have a different combination like a cast iron and a bronze, or a steel and a bronze, something like that, you have to opt for the cast iron and steel column. That is how you have to select, because always the material cannot be cast iron or cast iron and steel. Sometimes you can have a combination of different materials. If that is the case, in this table you have to select the column or the row with the different combination, which is nothing but cast iron and steel. And based upon the error, if error is 0.04, then if you are going to select a different combination, then the value of C is going to be 303. Suppose if the error is in between 0.04 and 0.06, we have to go interpolate and get the value. That is how we have to get the value for C. That is the only factor we have to take from the table. So after getting the value, we have to substitute it here. This is the equation for the dynamic load factor. This is the equation given for the dynamic load. Now after the calculation, this is the equation for the Buckingham equation for the dynamic load we have already calculated. Now everything is known. We can calculate the value of FD easily. Suppose if you have the error directly given in the question, and if you have the Young's modulus, you can use this equation to calculate the value of C. That is also accepted, but usually they don't give the error value. We usually calculate the error value. This is how we have to calculate the FD. And after FD, we are supposed to go with the wear load. That is the next step we are supposed to do, calculation of wear load. And the equation is D1BQK. You have to be very careful when you use this equation, because the equation itself is D1. It is not D2. Even if you are designing for the weaker member, which is nothing but a gear, suppose if the weaker member is a gear, you cannot use D2 here, because you can have or you can expect a higher wear rate in the pinion, because the pinion is the one which is going to rub more compared to that of the gear, because pinion is having a higher speed, so pinion is going to rub more when compared to that of gear. So always you have to use D1 here. Please don't use D2. This is not a mistake, it is the right one. So D1 is known, B phase width we know. The next thing is that Q and K. Q can be obtained from the equation. If you look at the equation, we can see Q can be obtained from the equation 2d2 by d2 plus d1, or 2z2 divided by z2 plus. So Q is a ratio factor which can be obtained directly, because we have already calculated the d2 d1 or z2 z1. So Q is readily available. Now comes K. K can be obtained from the table that I will show you. Here we have to do the design in two different ways. Suppose in the question, if they give you the material, if they give you a specific material, then we can identify the value of K. If you have endurance stress and alpha, all those things, if you substitute it, you can get the value of K. Or else we can go to the table 12.16 or 12.17. Let us go to the table 12.16 or 12.17. 12.16. This is the table. So here you have got pinion and gear material, different pinion and gear material, and based upon this, the endurance stress value is given here, and the K value is given here for 14.5 degree and 20 degree. So if the materials are known, based upon the combination, you can get the value of K from this table and you can substitute it over there. So that is how you have to select the value. If you have the material specified clearly, then you come to the table 12.16, get the material and find the corresponding value of K and substitute back in the equation and get the value of Fw. And the condition is that Fw has to be greater than Fd. That is the criteria. Fw has to be greater than Fd. So after substituting the value of K, if you get a value of Fw greater than Fd, then the design is safe. We can conclude the design. But usually what we do is something like this. In this step, in the wear load calculation, what we will do is we will equate Fw with Fd, because Fw has to be greater than Fd. So we will equate like this and we will find out the value of K. What is the meaning? Because in order to have a wear load greater than the dynamic load, the only parameter that we can vary is K. K is a factor that depends upon the hardness value. So we will identify the K value from this equation by equating Fw with Fd. So once you have the value of K, again we will go back to the table 12.17 here 16. If you have the value of K, suppose if you have a value of K as 1.325, so the nearest value is 1.383. So based upon this, we can have the Brinell hardness numbers 350 and 350. So we are going to state that if we need to have the wear load greater than dynamic load, then the pinion should have a hardness of 350 and the gear should have a hardness of 350. It may not be the same always, because it can have a 400 and 300 value. Anyway, from this step or after this step, we are going to specify the hardness of the gear. So once we can specify this hardness, it is easy to go for the fabrication. You can give enough heat treatment and we can get the specified value to have a wear load greater than the dynamic load. And this is how we are going to complete the design. Okay, so even if in the question, if they have given you the hardness value, suppose they stated that the gear has a hardness of 400 and pinion has a hardness of 350, then based upon that you can calculate the value of K and you can substitute it over here. But when you calculated the FW, you identified, suppose you identify that FW is lesser than FD, even though using the hardness value given in the question, if you have substituted it over here, after finding the value of K, and even after that, if you are going to get FW lesser than FD, then again you have to do the old procedure. What is that? You keep K as unknown and equate with FD, calculate the value of K, and then you suggest the new hardness. That is how you have to go ahead. If the hardness value is given in the question, if you use that value to the table, and after getting the value of K, and when you find out the value of FW, if you find that FW is lesser than FD, then what you have to do is you equate FW with FD, keep K as unknown, find the new value of K, and go to the table and suggest the new hardness for the gear. This is how you have to complete the design. So I hope you all understood the design procedure. You go through the data handbook along with this design procedure, get familiarized with the equations and table, and after solving one or two questions you will understand it very clearly. The design procedure for all the gear, that means for the spur gear, helical gear, bevel, worm, everything has got the same procedure. So once you are thorough with this procedure, it is easy for you to tackle the other design procedure also. So this is how you are going to carry out the design. Only thing is that the equation is going to change from gear to gear. That is the only variation we are expecting. So there is no other change in the design of any other system. So the initial part deals with the calculation of module. The second part was the calculation of dimensions of the gear, and finally we'll validate the design by calculating dynamic load and the wear load. That is how we are going to conclude the design of spur gear.